Hi, this is in part a response to Girl Writes What, her latest video. I thought was quite good, and something I've been wanting to do for about a week now. Haven't had much time, but what spurred me onto this was a comment made by a longtime subscriber, whose name I won't mention. He's not an MRM, he's not a man going his own way, and politically he's very different to me. He claimed that, and I don't want to make this a personal talk, but he claimed that there was something wrong with me, i.e., any man of a similar profile, considering my levels of education and my reasonable intelligence, that happiness and success have eluded me, and that got me thinking, of course, because I like thinking about things and criticism, and it made me think about the success model, and what I really wanted to do in this video is to specifically talk about the so-called success model, what it actually is. I also want to talk about happiness, contentment, male depression, male mental health, and perhaps finally something about psychology or the psychiatric industry and how it's applied to men. Well, for one thing, this was not a logical syllogism. Intelligence, education, ergo success, happiness. I don't know when that was ever the case, but that's not the major issue here. The major issue, of course, is we need to define what success actually is. Success, when you talk about it in that way, seems a rather nebulous term, and there seems to be some almost universal concurrence as to what it means. But I think it's much better, or would be better, if we were to approach the concept of success from a male perspective in a reductionistic fashion, reducing it to its base parts. And what are the base parts of success? Success essentially is quite simply the male competing in the biologically given dominance hierarchy against his fellow men for the attention of females. Earning a good wage, being successful, gaining recognition, so on and so forth. Success is quite simply clawing past your fellow men, whether you would get along with them or not, in an effort to get the attention of females. That is essentially the universal agreement of what success is. It's not actually talked about in those specific terms, but that's basically what it is. And any person with half a brain will see that. Success, therefore, is something that really should be questioned, because if success ultimately is simply about outcompeting your fellow males in an effort to get the attention of females, who, as we know and have talked about thousands of times, we know they don't give a shit about us, and we know that they're only interested in our output, our resources, and our performance, and what we can do for them, it becomes very questionable, very doubtful if the success model is something worthwhile to be pursued at all. That is to say, if you as a male with education and intelligence were in a position to be quote-unquote successful, is there enough compensation for striving for that so-called success on your end of the line? And I tend to think not. Even before, personally, I don't want to talk too personally, even before I became very intensely involved and aware of these issues, I was always deeply skeptical of the success model. I have enough intelligence, and I have 2 master's degrees and a bachelor's degree. I could be quote-unquote successful if I wanted to. But increasingly, as I got older, the whole success model seemed to be a big failure. I looked around at me at the ruins and destruction wrought mostly by marriage and destructive relationships by so-called successful friends of mine who had striven essentially for what society extols and thinks is great. And at the end of the day, no disrespect meant to them, they were lying in a pool of their own tears, really destroyed men, and they're picking up the pieces. That is essentially what success is. The other problem with success is it's essentially a Sisyphean term. That is to say, your task amounts to the hamster running in the hamster wheel, that it never ends. There are a couple of reasons why it never ends. There's always more money to be made, there's always more competition, there are always more men to compete against. That's one aspect of it. But the truly Sisyphean aspect of success is indeed the female's perspective on it. Because, as we know from Briffault's law, the female will always and continually test what success is. Let's say you're fortunate at your job, you're an engineer, and you earn 100,000 USD a year, which isn't too shabby at all, and you have good investments, and you're a kind, caring man, and so on and so forth. You've acquired a attractive, fertile young female as a partner. She will constantly put that success to the test. At some point in time, it won't be enough for her. Case in point, I have a very good friend who is the essentially head of the Rhode Island Budgetary Office. He's exceptionally intelligent, particularly in his field of public finance and economics. He essentially keeps the state together. He earns pretty well, all things considered. He was together with a woman. They were going to get married, possibly for about 7 years. At some point in time, after that long duration of being together, she told him quite simply that it wasn't enough for her. She wanted more. She wanted to live in a bigger house, bigger place. She wanted more money. She wanted more luxury. This guy is one of the hardest working people I know, and particularly in the budget season, he'll pull in 7-day work weeks for 2 or 3 months on end. So, total no-brainer there, what you see going on. And you see, of course, Briffault's law confirmed and justified and vindicated. So the success model, as I said, success is Sisyphean in nature. It's not only Sisyphean, it's it literally is the hamster running in the wheel. You might dangle a carrot. I've talked about the carrot dangled in front of the draft horse. That's what it is. You will fail. You'll fail at the latest in trying to achieve at least conventional ideas of success by the woman who will exploit you and simply doesn't give a shit about you. And the other thing, which I think is a great pity about traditional concepts of success, are the fact that I'm very big on male camaraderie and staying together, because quite frankly we don't have anyone else looking out for us, and there are a lot of good men, I suspect, that other men have clawed their way past and trodden upon in an effort to climb within the dominance hierarchy, and it might have been better to have befriended them and rejected that. Both men might have been happier in the long run. So that is in a nutshell what the success model is, and why I reject it, why, despite my education and intelligence, I have not achieved lasting success or happiness. And this begs the further question, what indeed is happiness, and how it can be achieved when you work within such a limited and destructive model, a model destructive and ruinous to the man as a being and to male identity. Quite frankly, success is not the ticket to happiness or contentment. If that were the case, many more men would be happier, but they're not. In fact, we're getting less and less happy as time goes on. So how could any man in his right mind, with his mental faculties intact, think that success would be the ticket to happiness and contentment? Why would he be content with such a model, based on such a model, working within such a model? It just doesn't follow. It would only follow if a person were brainwashed enough to believe that there's some mystical aspect or magic to having intelligence and education, and then pursuing success, and then, of course, you're happy all of a sudden. That's not how it works. And given that success is simply, as I said, beating your fellow men to death, metaphorically, in an effort to get the attention of the best possible vagina, doesn't really amount to much. And calling it anything else but a primitive game, a war of attrition, essentially, is really understating it. The success model is a war of attrition against men. It wears men away, and it is a war against men fighting their fellow men. So if you want to redefine success, which I'm not going to do here, and I have no delusions to my ability to redefine it, we're going to have to come up with something a lot better than what traditionally has been deemed success. Success needs to be thrown in the trash bin, quite frankly, and I reject it. Because it never made me happy. The few years when I was working regularly my ass off and was quote-unquote successful Well, that wasn't that cool. I was a miserable fuck. I had a massive amount of health problems, and the women weren't helping either. So, go figure. And that leads to the question of male mental health and depression and other things. Now, I like to be frank and candid in my videos, and I've been someone who, throughout my life, at various intervals of time, combated his depression. So I have experience with the psychiatric institution, as it were, the industry, and it is an industry. Given the fact that the success model in no way contributes to male contentment, in fact, contributes to discontentment, makes men essentially miserable in its current form, and probably has in the past as well, it should be no surprise that many men get very depressed. And as a girl writes what alluded to in her video, suicide rates amongst males are far, far higher than they are for women. Sorry, let me take a drink. Given that, it really begs the question, when we constantly hear about how women are much more susceptible, liable to fits of depression, who suffer more greatly from mental health issues. I am deeply, and I do mean deeply, deeply, profoundly skeptical of that claim, given that we see that our society, as it's structured currently, is essentially tailored to the happiness and contentment of the female, to the total detriment, and essentially ignoring ignorance of the male. It just doesn't follow that females would have greater mental health issues. What I do agree about is that it's certainly talked about a lot more. Many more many more issues regarding health in general are talked about amongst female kind. We all know that prostate cancer is much more vicious for men than breast cancer is for women, yet the numbers, the figures, the financial figures tell it all. And so we end up in a situation where now, regarding that aspect of health, and yeah, I mean, I even have some suspicion. Now, this is just my suspicion, and I think sometimes telling personal tales can be helpful. You know, up until a few months ago, I had what turned out to be a benign tumor in below my right jawline, which was successfully removed, and hopefully shouldn't come back. When I was still in the UK, I had so many misdiagnoses that it was insane. And only the last doctor, and the fourth one, had come to the idea of maybe this guy needs some ultrasound to see what's going on there. I suspect if I had been a female with the same tumor in the same region of my neck, that maybe I would have been referred to an ultrasound right away. This is just my feeling, but I think it could be justified on certain grounds, which I might explore at a later date. But getting back to mental health, when a man is depressed, he's quite simply told to man up. And what I want to talk about regarding the so-called psychiatric industry is that all it amounts to at the end of the day, for men at least, is you can take it all. You can take all their theories. You can take their diagnostic books, which fill volumes, and you can really boil it down to I'm a shrink, I'm a psychiatrist, I know better, and here's my line: get with the program. Anything they tell you is essentially a man up, get with the program slogan. I've never experienced anything differentiated from that. Friends of mine who've been unfortunate enough to be depressed have also not experienced that. So it really begs the question, what are they trying to sell us? And is male mental health, is male depression a serious issue, which of course it is, and is it being taken seriously? I think not. If someone just tells you to get with the program without exploring the causes, the chain, the causal links, they're not really doing a service to you. In fact, they're doing a massive disservice. So that's the state of affairs regarding mental health. It's sort of a get with the program approach. If you don't get with the program, well, it's your problem. If you don't get with the program, there's always another alternative, and that would be antidepressants, which we still don't really understand entirely, but that's the last-ditch attempt. A number of times I've made the analogy of the male in society as a cog in a giant machine, and you can get rid of cogs and you replace them. Of course, an efficient cog you want to keep well oiled, you want to keep it well greased, and so you would do that. If all other efforts fail, get with a program. One attempt to grease the cog that you might be as a male would be to prescribe antidepressants to you. That's always an option. That doesn't usually help, and when you very clearly have a playing field that is just a cesspool for male discontentment, it doesn't follow that the only thing you need are a bunch of meds. Interestingly enough, quite funnily enough, I was told this as well in this personal account, my last video, that I need to get on meds for my situation. But you get used to hearing that, and because the fact is, no one, particularly on the other side, the female kind, and men who buy into the system, who think that manning up is the solution, whatever that means, will really understand it, and so they'll just say, well, get with the program. Everyone just says get with the program. The point of this video, and MRM videos in general, and Girl Writes What's, I would assume, video, and men going their own way, is that we were getting with the program for a while, and then we saw the program wasn't very good, and it needed to be revised. And until that revision takes place, we're not getting with the program anymore. We're done with it. And Girl Writes What is right. We are exploring other avenues. One thing it might be likely take issue with is she talks about the pickup artist community, and I just want to briefly talk about that. I really don't see very much in common between pickup artists and MRMs and men going their own way. Pickup artists are beholden to vagina. That is their major goal in life. And our goal, whether it's stated officially or not, is more or less commandeering masculine male identity independent of females. That is a male identity that exists on its own, that it doesn't exist in relation to the female. Whereas the pickup artist community is entirely that's all it is. I don't have much communication with them, but every now and then I'll see a comment about how MRMs and men going their way should ally with so-called pickup artists. I don't see that happening. Why would you ally with the enemy? It just makes no sense. They are part of the enemy. They're just like feminists in a way. They worship vagina. They're not on our side. Barbara Russ has a really good video about this mining, but I just wanted to mention that briefly. So the success model and all the rest of it, and hey, something to add to the success model. Anecdotally, when I used to play the game and when I was a member of the so-called dominance hierarchy, trying to claw my way past others, I participated in the OkCupid online dating site, and I can confirm what Girl Writes What says in her video, that basically she said that OkCupid reported that 80% of women on OkCupid think that men are not attractive enough, i.e. below them. Statistically, that just doesn't compute, as she said. So, and you can run experiments. I had friends who were on these dating sites, writing hundreds of messages to women, average upwards, and no responses. So essentially, what you're dealing with, and on a separate date, I want to talk about internet dating as a manifestation of societal-wide social pathology. Essentially, what you see with internet dating is, women have completely lost their minds. They're totally off their rockers in terms of their expectations. The question really is, well, how were they anointed the goddesses that they perceive themselves to be? Well, I think feminism in large measure contributed to that. And it continues to contribute to it. And of course, as Girl Writes What is, the ignored gender does very well in his videos on misandry in the media. Yeah, men are portrayed as buffoons, and that of course accelerates the process. So yeah, I will talk about internet dating on a separate video at some point in time, hopefully in the near future, because it is a very interesting exercise in the study of pathologically insane behavior, primarily on the part of females, but also on the part of male supplicants. So no, I think that was a really good video that Girl Writes What put out just now, and you know, the boom. There is no benefit anymore to following the success model. And in case the original poster, who's been my subscriber for 3 years, claimed that I have been sort of essentially losing my mind over the last 3 years, well, I would welcome a video response to, and I welcome your definition of success. If the success model is not what I've described it to be, if it is actually a means of achieving happiness and contentment, then by all means put forth a video response. If not, then well, then I've stated my case, and I'll leave it at that. Men, men, men participating in the success model are unlikely to be happy because it's not made to contribute to their happiness, and that's why we are leaving, and to whatever avenue and venue it might be for the individual male. And on a final note, as Girl Writes What says, that we are here on the internet in particular united around a common cause. And that cause is, as I said, commandeering male identity, supporting our fellow men, because at the end of the day, there's no one else out there to support you. And because we don't have we just very astutely observed by Girl Writes, we don't have an in-group male preference. But what we do have is we have our reason, we have excellent rational faculties of intellect, and we can recognize the justice and the appropriateness of our cause, and we can rally around that. There will always be male dissenters, i.e. manginians, white knights, supplicants, and to me, they're just as bad as the women, if not more so. But I'm not, I'm not going to deal with them here. So yeah, that's success. That's the way things are looking right now, and yeah. So that's my answer to your claim. I have this education and I have this reasonable intelligence, and yet I'm not successful. It's eluded me. I've made it elude me. I don't want to be in that system. Because when I was in that system, I was even more miserable than I am now. So there you have it, and thanks for watching.